has looked like a juggernaut the whole year. You and I both, you had faith in Kansas City. They figured it out. When you look at this team, which team do you think is riding higher coming in? Do you think Kansas City right now should be the prohibitive favorite because it looks like they're playing their best right now?
Yeah, I think Kansas City Chiefs have been the best team in the playoffs. I mean, let's look back at who they've beaten. I mean, that's what I said to you. I said they beat the Bills, they beat the Ravens, and now here they are. And this is a team that has defied all odds and kept winning despite not really having a number one guy in the wide receiver position. It just hasn't really seemed to matter. They've got the play calling in Andy Reid. They've got the magician and Patrick Mahomes, and then they've got Travis Kelce. And between the group of the other guys, they've done enough to get it done. And then really that's been because Spagnuolo has kept the other team scoring to a minimum. I mean, if you look at the scoring from just that 2019 Chiefs team to this year, scoring is way down, almost 10 points, 9 points, and they've been able to continue to win in other ways.
What's your perception of how Spagnuolo is going to come after this team? Because we've seen him in the past go against like a Tom Brady, and it was all about the pass rush. It was all about keeping those fresh legs on the front of the front four, kind of dropping 7 in coverage and getting that front four that could get after, Tom Brady and those kind of quarterbacks. This team starts with Christian McCaffrey and Debo. And is he going to try and take one of those weapons away from Purdy or both those weapons? What do you think he's going to do?
The big issue is Menahue being out. That to me is a huge deal. Him tearing his ACL and not being available for the Kansas City Chiefs defense is rough, man. George Karlaftis has come a long way, double-digit sack guy out of Purdue now, really taking over as a full-time starter. Really this year, he's come a long way. But if you look at it, their pass rush getting to the quarterback ratio is about 12 to 14 percentage points higher when a Menahue is on the field. And that's just, I'm not just throwing stats out here. No. I'm just saying they're a better football team with him. So Spags is going to have to figure out a way to continue to get pressure without that guy being involved. And that's going to be a tough order, mainly to me, because I think Trent Williams is one of the top 3 football players in the NFL. So that left side, you kind of just forget it. He's the best football player I've seen at the offensive tackle position since, Lincoln Kennedy, Jonathan Ogden, Walter Jones. We can go down the list. This guy to me is the next big time tackle. And there's really nothing you can do to beat this guy. There's no weaknesses. So you got to kind of work around him, and you got to figure out how to slow down McCaffrey and keep him out of the end zone because this guy's been scoring points at will.
And then, the other man, he's under the spotlight. You and I, we talked about him back in college. So I'm not saying we're late to the story on this guy, but still, Brock Purdy. Everybody is telling me what he's not. To me, he's a winner, and that's the biggest thing he has to be. I'm sick of hearing the Colin Cowards of the world, and I guess he was on today saying Bo Nix is better than Brock Purdy. It's like I just don't get. I understand. They do it for clicks. They do it for ratings. But you have to say something ridiculous like that just to get a rating? I mean, come on.
Apparently so. And that doesn't make any sense because if you think about it, everybody thought Trey Lance was going to be the savior for this football team and be the difference maker. And he was they traded a king's ransom to move up and take Trey Lance. And he never really worked out, Joe. I mean, I know he had injuries, but he never, you never looked out there and were like, oh, this guy, whoa, look out. They're winning with him. It was just not looking good, even in the preseason games when he played or when he got out there in the regular season. So you can't just say, oh, anybody can be the quarterback of this team and they can roll. No. That's not true. And this dude has, been legit since he got put in the lineup. All I heard was, oh, he's not going to be able to throw after this injury. He didn't have a big arm in the first place. And then I watched the game last week, and he took over in the second half, throwing, running, making decisions, doing whatever it took to make sure they won, and he was a big part of it.
I mean, he's definitely a great upgrade from Garoppolo. Definitely an upgrade
He
from
is.
Garoppolo.
And
But
I
I mean,
love Jimmy G.
me too. Me too. You and I have defended him right and left. But when you look about the Shanahan offense, like you said, everybody thinks it's a plug-in and anybody can do it. Outside of Garoppolo uh, and to Brock Purdy, none of these quarterbacks has worked out. He's had to plug and place a bunch of quarterbacks in there, and he doesn't get the same results. So I mean, the people who sit there and say it's all about Shanahan's system are wrong. It's like the people who used to sit there and say, anybody could run Bill Walsh's offense. I'm sorry. Sometimes you get the perfect fit for the perfect offense, and it works. And it looks like Purdy is the perfect fit. He's the quarterback, the type of quarterback that Shanahan wants.
Yeah, he definitely fits the system good, but it doesn't mean that it's the system that makes him. It's
No,
all these guys together, doing their job, getting it done. And he's doing his job, which is the most important one at the quarterback position. And like I said, he's still young. And so at times, like, you're like, oh, what's going on here? And people will point to a half here or a half there where maybe he struggles a little bit. But that's called making adjustments and figuring out what the other team's doing well against you. And he's still figuring things out, man. He's a young player, and really, this is only his second season being in the NFL. So I expect him to continue to improve. And he's got it. That's what it's about. He has it, which is what other guys want,
right.
and that's why he's done what he's done since he's been around.
And the thing that gets me about when they talk about these guys and they'll analyze their games. I mean, I've watched a lot of great quarterbacks, and I go back to. In fact, I give Romo a little credit for this because he brought it up last week or the week before. One of those guys did. In that game where Dwight Clark makes the catch, people forget Joe Montana threw 3 interceptions in that game. You know what I mean? He still was tough enough to make the big play in the fourth quarter. Quarterbacks don't usually go through games without some kind of mistakes. Sometimes they get dropped, like back when Eli Manning beat when Asante Samuel drops that interception that could have saved the perfect season for the Patriots. Sometimes they get caught. I mean, no quarterback is perfect, but we just try and make them be perfect all the time, and it just drives you crazy.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about with him. That's the it factor. He may throw an interception. He may make a bad decision and throw a bad ball that looks hits a guy in the chest and should have been intercepted or whatever. And you're like, oh, look, he's looking shaky. But every time he picks it up and he believes in himself and he knows what he's doing out there. So eventually he gets it right, and that's why they've been able to win so many games. And yeah, they did have that little stretch there where they lost 3 games, I think. But in my opinion, everybody talks about Debo being hurt, but Trent Williams wasn't out
Right.
there. And
That was
that's
the
the
biggest thing.
difference maker. He's not only the best pass protector in the National Football League, but when that guy pulls or wants to make a hole for a run lane, he can do that too. So him being out was huge, in my opinion, and was the reason that they struggled a little bit there.
I know they'll never make a case for it, but when you bring up something like that, you wonder why an offensive lineman couldn't win an MVP. When you
Yeah,
think about it,
there's been times where they should have. I think back to Orlando Pace when he played for the St. Louis Rams, and when he played for the Ohio State Buckeyes, he was the best player on the field all the time. Some people didn't want to admit it because they didn't know how to evaluate offensive linemen. But if you did and you knew about football and you watched the Buckeyes in the 90s when Orlando Pace was out there and you watched that Rams team, he was the best player. He just was an unstoppable force from when he started playing in college till he retired. And that's why he's in the Hall of Fame.
yeah. And like we said, we're talking about these teams. I mean, now let's talk about a little about legacies. Kansas City's legacy now, they've definitely taken over for the Patriots as the poster boys for the NFL. San Francisco, there's been a couple of different legacy periods with San Francisco. The Joe Montana era, the Steve Young era. You could even give your favorite coach the Harbaugh era, if you want to call it that. Now this is the Shanahan era, his second time to the Super Bowl. How big is this for him to win?
Yeah, I think it's pretty big. It would set him over the edge, which he's right on it. I mean, he went to the Super Bowl with the Falcons when he was the offensive coordinator, and then he took over out in San Francisco. He got him to the Super Bowl, and now he's back again. So there's a pattern here. It's him winning football games, even when they haven't been in the Super Bowl. Almost all the time they've been in the NFC Championship game. So this guy knows what the hell he's doing. Let's be honest, his dad was a damn good coach, and he kind of took his own path and then learned his own way. And he is one of the best play callers in the NFL. So I think he's already right up at the top when you talk about, head coaches in the NFL and who's the best at winning. But you get that Super Bowl ring on your finger, and the whole world recognizes that. So I think he knows it's big, and he's going against, potentially one of the top 3 coaches of all time, in Andy Reid, and I know he's not flinching.
Well, that's the whole thing is like, Andy Reid is set. He has proven over the last 20 years that it's kind of like him and Belichick, and I don't know who you put up in the top 2 with those two. I mean, as far as winning and being the best coach for 20 years. This, I think, for Shanahan is because he gets compared to McVay, and McVay has his ring. So I think, he needs to get his ring just to keep on that same level with McVay and say, we're the young guns that are leading the next generation of coaches. And when you see it keeps getting younger and younger, they're pretty much going to be the older coaches pretty soon. So it should be fun to see there. What who do you think has to get out to a quicker start? Who do you think is the team built to go the distance here?
Well, as we just talked about, I think the 49ers are probably the better team overall from top to bottom on the roster, but the Chiefs are playing better right now. So I feel like it'd be helpful for the Chiefs to go out and get a stop or two and get points to help their chances in winning, because eventually this Niners team is going to get going. And everybody knows that they're going to score. Whether it takes them a half to get going or a quarter, they're going to get it going. So I feel like it's really important for the Chiefs to go out, get some points on the board, whether that's 7, 14, 10, I don't know, but get something in the first quarter so their defense can have a little bit of a buffer.
When you look around in the NFL right now and how it's progressed this season, Roger Goodell, what kind of a grade would you put on this season? What would you, when you look at this season? I mean, the Ravens had a great season. There were a lot of good storylines, but there were a lot of storylines that seemed to be the same old story, like the Dallas Cowboys, and now it's degenerating again into a finger pointing and what's wrong with the Cowboys and a lot of stuff. The coaching jumping around. Well, what do you think? How do you think the health of the NFL for the fans is right now?
Well, I mean, you always want to have the best players on the field, right? And there were several teams that were down to their 4th and 5th quarterbacks and 3rd quarterbacks or whatever it was. And for some of those teams, the Jets in particular, it was hard to watch.
Yeah.
But, you think about Joe Flacco's of the world. I mean, he really saved the NFL for a lot of people because he was able to keep the Browns competitive when they had such a really good defense. And then, some young guys emerging, like especially CJ Stroud in Houston. That's what you want, is to see the next young player who's going to come up and shake things up. So I think there were some positives across the board. But, there's definitely issues with the league, but people are still watching. People are still consuming this product at a high rate. And that's gonna keep the machine rolling. That is the NFL. And, I have issues sometimes with the games they choose to put on at prime time, and having to watch the Dallas Cowboys every single week is rough. But, it's still one of the top draws in the world as far as sports go. You know me, I'm a college football guy. I always will be, even in the dilapidated world that is college football right now with the all the goings-ons. I still prefer it.
Yeah, it's funny, you talk about that. I mean, you talk about college football and how it's affecting it. And now you got, Reese Davis and a bunch of these announcers that, let's face facts, they owe their careers to college football, coming out and talking about how this we're now seeing kind of the bad side of the money situation in college. Something I feared for a while, and I think it'll correct itself once you get people in there who know how to deal with this. But for right now, it is a little bit. You talked about it many times, the transfer portal, and how it is really affecting teams and how they can put teams together and keep teams together, and how coaches want to stay in one place. I mean, right now they used to have total control. They used to have a lot of say. Now their boosters have more say than them in some cases if they don't have a reputation already. What's your opinion of that right now?
Yeah, I think Nick Saban said it best. I mean, he is the best college football coach of all time, and he said it best. He said the reason that he had as much success as he did for so long was that he was able to adapt. So if you are a college football coach and you want to continue to win, you're going to have to learn how to navigate all the things that are being thrown at you. And I think that's one of the reasons, obviously, everyone knows I'm a Buckeye fan, but I like what Ryan Day has done recently with giving up the play calling duties, having Brian Hartline be more involved, hiring Bill O'Brien to be the offensive coordinator. He's got so much to do to keep these players to keep the players happy, to keep the recruiting going, to keep the NIL going, to keep, checking the transfer portal, figuring out, so to speak, who should be coming in and who should be going out. That's really what they're doing now. It's like being a general manager, because you're having to get your personnel together and have a different team every season, just like the NFL. So it's become, a game of developing, a game of picking up developed players, a game of, keeping the guys that you have and the talent that you develop and keeping them happy and wanting to stay at your program. So it's a lot of work, and it's definitely different, but that doesn't mean it's bad, right? And I think that over time, like you said, things will correct themselves, because they're fighting right now with legislation over what should be allowed, what shouldn't be allowed. Some things are going to change, and the landscape is going to be totally different, I think, in 5 years.
I think they finally have to get in there they got to get a commissioner. They got to get a businessman in there. You can't have these college presidents running this and making decisions like this. They got to get a full-time commissioner. Like you said, the head coach is now, I mean, the transfer portal is almost like the waiver wire. You're looking for free agents and waiver wire. You got a lot of stuff to do. And I agree with you.
It's college football free agency.
Right.
It is.
And the new coaches are okay with that. They'll be used to it. They'll be brought up in it. They'll understand the innings, the in and outs of it. Whereas the older coaches are the ones affected. One thing I heard, Bill O'Brien was dipping his toe in the Boston College pool. Is that true?
Well, they're interested in him. Whether or not he wants to take that job, I don't know. There's been a lot of rumors that he's gone and that he is going to go there. Whether those rumors are from him or not, I don't know. I know that he has not been hired by Boston College yet. I know that he was at the Woody Hayes Center yesterday, and he's working for Coach Day right now.
Right.
But there's been a lot of noise, just because of the ties. He did work for in the Boston area.
Yeah.
He's
a Boston guy, I think, too.
He's a Boston guy, so there's a lot of reports that he is going to be hired there, but he hasn't been. So I think either way, the Buckeyes are in a win-win situation, right? I mean, if he stays, I think it takes a little bit of the pressure off Ryan Day. Maybe they collaborate on the play calling. I think it's a good thing. If he doesn't stay, Coach Day's called plays before, and I'm confident with him game planning.
Yeah, I'm not worried about Ohio State. I'm more intrigued by the Bill O'Brien aspect of it. I mean, we all know he went up to Penn State and at least kept them respectable during the Paterno struggle, or the Paterno firing, or leaving the program. And then he went to New England. Then he goes to down to Texas, and for the first couple of years, he seemed to see what he had the Texans kind of going in the right direction, and then the Deshaun Watson and everything fell apart for him, and he's been trying to get himself back on track. I'm just wondering, because you're the college football guy, is if he really wants to get back into head coaching, is BC the stepping stone that he needs in the ACC? Would that put him back in good stead to get a bigger job or a pro job? What do you think?
Yeah, I think if he can win there, I think it would be good. I mean, everybody thinks, oh, this program's horrible. That Jeff Hafley won 7 games there last year, including the bowl game. So it's not as bad as people lead it to believe. It's a harder. The budget is not the same. We were just talking about Ohio State and Boston College. Ohio State and Boston College are not in the same league financially, and that's just the way it is. That's why one school gets five stars and the other one gets 0 because it's a different world. But this program you can win at. And my question is, why does Bill O'Brien get a pass for last year? I mean, they couldn't get a goddamn first down in any of the games that I watched, and everybody just kind of subtracts it from his resume. And I'm like, I'm all for saying the guy's done a good job here and he's done a good job here. Well, I'm also going to call a spade and give it up that he was a freaking horrible offensive coordinator last year. Do they have the greatest personnel? No. Did they have a really good quarterback? Not really. I don't know if they had any. They had 2 playing, but I'm not sure if either one of them was good. But you can't just act like, he wasn't also part of the problem, because if you remember the year before, they blamed it all on Matt Patricia and said it was all because of him and Joe Judge. And that was a bit bad mistake having them do it. I didn't see much difference between last year and this year.
Well, I agree with you. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that you have a media that finally had Belichick at a weak point and wanted to bury Belichick. So it was like,
they blamed it all on him.
Right. It was like, they didn't want to give him any kind of excuses. You know what I mean? It's like, there's Belichick. Like we finally got this guy who's been giving us crap for 25 years, trying to make us feel inferior. And now we can pile on him. We're going to pile on him. So, I mean, it was kind of,
and that's why, that's why, for example, he got a pass was because everybody wanted to bury Belichick, and they wanted to give him a free pass. But I do think that's why he wants to maybe take a head job, is to be in charge of his old program and be responsible for it.
Well, I think it could be a really good move for him, and like you said, I mean, but I wonder what is it someplace. I'm the kind of guy who I always think, when they take a job like this, and if you have success, why not stay there? But these guys, and he's getting up there now. He's not the 30-year-old guy that everybody's been looking for in 2 years. Could BC be his place to stay?
I think if he does take the job and chooses to be the coach there, I think he needs to put a couple of years of good work. I just don't think he's going to have one good season unless they're not in the position to, contend for an ACC championship next year with the personnel they have right now. So right. I think he would need to stay there, have a decent year next year, and then maybe, exceed expectations year 2 and year 3 in order to even move on to a better spot.
Yeah. Let's see. Let's think about free agents right now. We got a few minutes here to go over this going into the off season. Some free agent people where we think they're going to end up next year, or if they're not going to be taken seriously at all. Kirk Cousins.
Great question. He should be heading right back to Minneapolis if they want to win football games there. But I really have no idea what their front office, what their general management is trying to do up there, considering they won, 13, 14 games the year previous. And then, we're on the fence about bringing him back, got rid of Dalvin Cook, got rid of Zadarius Smith, got rid of a ton of guys and made no sense. And the team was not as solid. And then when he went down, it was a disaster. So, I don't know what they're doing there. I would say he would be back on the Vikings roster next year, except I have no idea what they're doing up there. So I expect him to potentially be somewhere else. There's definitely going to be a market for him. Yeah. And I can think of a couple of teams
Raiders.
That would want to bring him in. Raiders is one of them. I would think, even Washington, I know he's been there before, but I know they would potentially want to bring him back, just due to the familiarity that organization has with him. But I feel like there's going to be 2 or 3 teams they're going to make a play for him. I would even think potentially the Falcons would make a play for him as well, because they need somebody in a big time way.
Tannehill,
I don't know what market is out there right now for Tannehill. I don't know where his head's at. Does he still want to be a starter? Does he want to get starter money? Is he content with taking a backup job? I think he's a backup quarterback, in my opinion, at this point of his career. He's getting pretty long in the tooth.
35.
He's not the athlete that he used to be, especially with the injuries that he's had. So I expect him to either take a job where he's either competing for a spot, or where he's going to be the number 2.
Our man Baker Mayfield. I hear they picked up the guy from Kentucky who would work with the Rams to be the offensive coordinator down there. I think Baker was happy. I think he may have found a spot. I mean, I don't think that he has to worry about being benched right away. He's proven himself down there. Seems to be happy. The crowd or the fans seem to love him down there. What do you think about Baker going back to Tampa? He's only 28 too, 29.
Yeah, I mean, Tampa is going to have a lot more flexibility with the cap this offseason than they did last year with the $80 million hit that they were under. So it's going to be a lot of moves being made down there. Whether Baker's in their plans or not, I'm not 100% sure, but I definitely think he at least earned himself an opportunity to fight for a starting job somewhere. I think he played really well. I think he had his best season ever statistically. So I do believe he'll be a factor somewhere going into the fall. Whether that's in Tampa or not, I'm not 100% sure, but I feel like he played well enough that they're going to try to bring him back at least one more year.
Here's an interesting guy, Gardner Minshew. Here's a guy. He's like a 1A quarterback. He's like on the bubble. He can go in there and start a bunch of games for you and keep you competitive and do the right thing. But he's also doesn't seem to be the kind of guy that can become your franchise quarterback either. He's only 27. What do you think about Gardner Minshew?
Yeah, I mean, I think he did a phenomenal job this year, and he's proven to be a really good backup quarterback, potentially a guy that could even, fight for a starting job somewhere if there's a place that wants to bring in a veteran guy to, compete with the younger guy. That's where I can see him fitting in. I could see the Colts bringing him back too and wanting him to stay there because he did such a great job. And I don't know, what the status of Anthony Richardson is health-wise. Plus, even if he does come back, he's proven to be, injury prone, at least in his first year.
Yeah. 2 guys here. Tyrod Taylor, 34 years old. Jacoby Brissett, 31. I know they're everybody's darling as backup quarterbacks. I think definitely Brissett is going to have a lot of suitors. Tyrod, I mean, I love what he tried to do for the Giants this year when he was healthy and on the field. He was kind of effective, but he still has that injury bugaboo. And for a backup quarterback, a 35-year-old backup quarterback to be injured, I mean, that's kind of a check mark against him. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you want whoever the backup is to be pretty durable. That's one of the factors. That's one of the reasons why a lot of guys go with younger dudes. Is because they want them to be able to either be healthy a lot or heal fast, and he's not that guy anymore. So he's getting near the end of the road.
Yeah, and what about one more guy before we make our picks? Joe Flacco. Do you think there'll be a market for him, or do you think, it was just he threw a lot of interceptions. I mean, yes, it worked in Cleveland because you have that defense. Yeah. In another town with not as good a defense, not so much.
Yeah, it comes down to him, man. Does he want to? Is that fire still burning? Does he want to play a full season? Does he want to be a part-time guy and maybe come if somebody else gets hurt again. I don't know. But I don't think anybody's going to bring him in to be their bona fide starter. I think those days have come and gone.
All right, let's make our game picks. I'll let you go first. Who are you picking?
You know what? I'm picking San Francisco just because I have a funny feeling that they're going to be able to score enough points on Kansas City to win. And Kansas City just doesn't have that high octane offense anymore. They're more about playing defense and scoring points when they have to. And I just don't know whether they're going to be able to keep up. So I'm going San Francisco. I'm going 24-20.
Yeah, I tell you, I hate to pick against Mahomes. It's kind of, to me, it's like picking against Michael Jordan in a big game. It's something you really shouldn't do if you're not really sure about it. But I tell you, every time, and I hate to use it, but I was because of your Notre Dame background, I was a Joe Montana fan, and I see a lot of Joe Montana and Purdy. They used to call Joe Montana a system quarterback too. And I just think they're in the right spot at the right time. And I think it's San Francisco too. I'm going to go 27-17 San Francisco. And before we let you go, I want I'm going to let's make our obscene pick. Who will we be talking about next year? The two teams. Who do you think the two teams next year?
In the NFL?
Yeah. Who's our two Super Bowls next year?
Two Super Bowls next year. God, I have no idea. I haven't even thought that far ahead.
I'll give you mine if you want it.
Go for it.
Green Bay, Miami.
Green Bay, Miami. Yeah, I guess that's a potential matchup. Miami's going to have to get a lot better on defense, in my opinion, if they're going to be a team that can, sustain it. And there were times where they just looked kind of soft. And I know there was games where they could score at will, but there was other games where, they had trouble even moving the ball and continuing drives. So that's why I'm not ready to buy into them just yet. Although, they beat the crap out of the weaker teams in the league. That's for sure. They just struggled when they played the more dominant team. So maybe they become that team next year.
Yeah, we'll see. Before we go, I just want to, we don't talk a lot about baseball. I don't know if any of you really watch it at all or whatever, but there's this kid in Kansas City, this young player, Bobby Witt Jr., who is going into his third year. And I got to give props to this kid. He's just signed an 11-year contract to play with the Kansas City Royals at kind of a bargain rate when you talk about potential superstars in Major League Baseball. He's only going to be making like $25 million a year. And at a time when they're handing out 40, 50, 60, $70 million contracts to play in LA, to play in New York, to play in these big cities, this 23-year-old said, no, I'll stay with the team that brought me. I'll stay here. I want to play my career here. He knows the odds of him winning Super Bowl or winning World Series and stuff. I give him props because he could have sat there, played out his option, and probably made twice as much money on the free agent market. But he wants to help build the Royals. So we need more guys like that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, especially when you think about the contracts that have been thrown around in the last couple of years, $700 million to a guy who is going to the Dodgers. And, Mike Trout's contract, making 40, 50, $60 million. It's nice to see that some people value loyalty, being happy, controlling their destiny, and that's where that means more to them than how many dollars they can put next to their name.
And appreciating the fans, appreciating a fan base that needs a superstar like him, that needs somebody that they can at least be proud of. It's been a long time since they had a George Brett, so I give them a lot. So
no doubt.
Anyways, my friends, good weekend for football. We will see what comes out. I'm looking forward to this game like you are. And we will be back next week and start getting ready for next year, I guess. Wow.
Yeah, we're starting talking about next year's stuff. The season really never ends. And luckily, we do have college and pro basketball to, hang us together until we get to the next football game to watch.
Yeah, and we can start looking into those free agents in depth next week. Dude, have a great weekend. I will see you next week.
Sounds good, bud.
All right.